Hey everyone, this is the Movie Maniac. Thanks for tuning in because today we're going to do something a little different. It's been a long time since I've done a ranking video. And these ranking videos are typically a lot of fun to make because it causes me to reflect on these things. But with this one, I didn't need to reflect too much because I've had conversations, endless conversations about these franchises with friends for too long. These franchises have remained dormant. And in the horror community, we want these movies. So these are 5 horror movies we need a sequel to. I know I've been doing a lot of shorts recently, but it's been a while since I've done any of this long form content, if you even want to call it that. So we're changing that today. And I want to dive right into this because there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons I picked these 5, and we're going to go over them. So number 1 on the list is Friday the 13th. We haven't had a movie here since 2009. That's how long it's been since the remake came out. And there's literally no excuse for this except for the battle with the franchise rights. Now they're going to make a TV series. I don't need that. Nobody asked for it. Let's get Jason back on the big screen. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. One, I would actually be okay with, which is actually making a direct sequel to the 2009 movie, which I thought was really good. You know, that's the way to do a horror remake. That's one of the ones that many of us consider to be one of the more successful remakes in this genre. 2, this is where it gets a little tricky, but it's pretty much your only alternative, is just to do a direct sequel to the original film. Now, here's the difference between Friday the 13th and jumping into something like Halloween. With Halloween, you had Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. And your casual fan, your average audience member who only goes to see 1, 2, maybe 3 movies a year might not even know the name Laurie Strode, but they know Jamie Lee Curtis, and then once they mention Strode, they go, oh yeah, and a light bulb goes off. There's no one really in Friday the 13th you can name like that. The closest we have is Tommy Jarvis, but your average moviegoer has no idea who that is, right? And they're not a big name, there's no big name actor attached to it. So you can scrap that. You can pretty much just do a direct sequel to the first movie and just have it go right into Jason, which, again, this is starting to sound similar to the Friday the 13th 2009 remake. Am I right? You know, and then show Sackhead Jason, get the mask, now we have Friday the 13th again. Or you can make a sequel to the final chapter, you know? So I think that probably a sequel to the 2009 movie wouldn't be a bad idea. However, I think Hollywood's going to be tempted to just remake it and completely hit the restart button on this. They're going to feel like that's the most logical choice to make, and maybe this much time having passed since then, maybe they're right, but we need Jason back. We need him on the big screen. Trust me, it's going to make truckloads of money. Doing this is going to, whoever gets behind this is going to be able to make retirement money off of this thing, okay? The demand that we had for Myers and Ghostface proves that there is a strong market for these masked killers and slasher icons like Jason. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, we're going to move on to the next one, and that's going to be Jaws. Now, you might think that that's sacrilege, right? Like, you can't do a sequel to Jaws. Well, we've got 4 Jaws movies, okay? We've got 4 of them, and they quit after The Revenge. Let's take a look at what's happened since then. Deep Blue Sea, awesome movie. The Shallows, most people liked. 47 Meters Down, good film. 47 Meters Down Uncaged, the beginning kind of sucks, but once the movie kicks off and they're in the water and the caverns and everything, it's pretty good. And then the ending is terrific. Then you have The Meg. The Meg is kind of a unfairly beaten up on little shark flick. And it's a B movie, of course, just like a lot of these are. But it's, you know, you go back and watch it again, it actually got much better for me in my second viewing. And now we're going to have The Meg 2 coming out soon. Here's why Jaws needs to make a return. It needs to. Because you need this movie to be great. It can't be okay. It can't be good. It's got to be minimum 8 out of 10. But we need to be in the 8.5 range. And we need some people to come in and say it's a classic. That's going to be hard to do, but hear me out. A lot of practical effects are required. We need all of the CG to be on point because in some of these other shark movies I just pointed out, the CG will look great and then all of a sudden you'll see a shot that looks iffy. Jaws can't have that. Period. It has to be incredible. And I think that if you get a great shark movie back in theaters under the Jaws title, with Bruce coming in saying he's king. Nobody else is. This is where all these other movies have come from, okay? Without this, these movies don't exist. And we're going to show you how to do it right. It's going to come in with an amazing script, a script that's going to blow all these other movies out of the water. And we're going to show people how it's done. And maybe have some flashback scenes if you want to. You know, I mean, I don't know how much of the original cast you can realistically bring back at this point, because this thing's going to come in and it's going to dominate the box office if done correctly. Maybe Spielberg could come back. I know it sounds far-fetched, but if you had something special enough, because this has to really justify its existence, you can't halfway this movie, and you get a truly terrific script, and you have an amazing director, and then this all comes together with a great film, nobody's going to regret it. And let's be honest, it's going to probably have to be a requel, okay? You don't need to really build off of 4, 3, or probably even really 2 for that matter, okay? So let's just go ahead and get this thing going. Let's not be shy about it. Let's try and get Spielberg's interest. And I don't want him on as a producer. I want him as a director. He needs to be the filmmaker. You know, let's make it happen. And if, you know, enough of these returning actors, I don't know, can we get Richard Dreyfuss back? Is it just even a possibility? You know, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. And let's not have it be a beat for beat remake. We can have it be a tribute to that. But by the time it hits the second act of the movie, it needs to go full speed ahead. It needs to be super fast paced. It needs to be gorier than the original. And it needs to have a certain fear that it puts back into the audience. A fear that none of these other films, the Meg couldn't touch. 47 meters down, you thought that was freaky? Nothing compared to what this new Jaws movie can do to you. Now, moving on to the next one. This is a totally different style tonally, right? Where Friday the 13th is pretty serious. Jaws obviously is. This is more of a light, fun idea. And that is, let's get a true sequel to The Lost Boys. Okay? I know there was a 2 and a 3 that came out direct-to-video, but the problem with that is that it felt direct-to-video. It looked direct-to-video. It moves very direct-to-video. So let's forget that. Let's do a true sequel and get as many possible returning cast members as you can. Whoever we can is coming back for this movie. The Frog Brothers. And something else that I need to throw in here, okay? And this is important. Corey Haim, who I really like, unfortunately passed away in the 2010s. Rest in peace, brother. He needs to be an integral part of this movie. And you might ask yourself, how is that possible if he's passed away? The same way that Ghostbusters Afterlife was a touching tribute to Harold Ramis. I'm not saying you copy that movie, but allow Corey Haim's character from The Lost Boys to maybe be the catalyst for this new story, the way Harold Ramis' character was in Ghostbusters Afterlife. You know, have him be the reason they all have to come back. And then maybe surprise us. All right? I'm not saying to bring back a deep fake version of him for a brief period, but maybe you do. Maybe you do. You know, and I think that would be so touching. True fans would probably tear up, and keep the same tone. Make it fun. Make it a horror comedy. You know, make this one of those films. And I could see the studio saying, hey, we have to make it PG-13 if we want to give it the budget and have it be a big release. I could see Warner Brothers making that a requirement. Well, okay, here's my concession. You make it PG-13, you better up the budget. Because we know for sure this is going to theaters. Every movie on this list is meant to be a theatrical release. And if we do this, you'll have parents who saw this when they were kids taking their kids, you know, probably 9, 10 and up to a PG-13 movie. And it will make a lot of money. It will please the hell out of fans. And we'll all be very happy. Now, let's move on to the next one. And that's going to be pretty obvious. I think you guys knew this one was coming. Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay, you got to bring back Robert, and you got to bring back Heather in some capacity, because there's a couple of ways you can do this, kind of like Friday the 13th. Now, with this one, you can either do a direct sequel to the first movie, but I think a lot of people would find that to be lazy. You could do one to Dream Warriors and bring back Nancy in a dream or a flashback, do a little bit of de-aging, whatever you want to do there. Or, yeah, maybe you could do a direct sequel to New Nightmare, acknowledge the canon of all of these films and just give us one last really high quality nightmare. And here's the thing though, you got to keep this in mind. I believe New Line currently owns the rights to it. I think it's still owned by Warner. I'm not sure, but I believe it is. As a matter of fact, I'm confident that it is, because I think Scream Factory has had an issue getting the movies because they say it's an active franchise. It's not an active franchise. There's nothing going on with Freddy Krueger right now. So bring him back and get either like Mike Flanagan or David Gordon Green or a director who's qualified to do this. You need a qualified filmmaker to come in and make this happen. And when you do this, it's going to make so much money that you better have him inked under contract for at least 2 more movies, because you'll want to do a trilogy. Trust me, it is without question going to be profitable, and it's going to blow him up. He's going to be all over social media. He already is, but in the horror community, he's huge, obviously. But it's going to be like Ghostface if you bring him back. It's going to be massive. And you know what? Make him scary. Don't be shy about making Freddy scary, but give him some good one-liners too, because the audience is going to want that. And let's really see them get this right. And you know what? If it gets to a point where Robert can't keep continuing to get under the makeup for the entire duration of the runtime, get somebody else that's close or a look-alike, or maybe do something that doesn't look terrible with a little bit of, modern technology, but let's keep his voice. Make sure his voice is always going to be there for us for these new movies. I'm only asking for 1 more, but the reason I'm even throwing the idea of 2 more after that is because I, with full confidence, can tell you it's going to be a massive success. So, Nightmare, we need to go back to Elm Street. We need to have another Nightmare with Freddy. Okay, are you guys ready? This is the last one on the list. Probably one you don't expect, and that is Predator. And I know you might be thinking, but Maniac, we had Prey last year. You already had a sequel. No, that's a prequel. I want a sequel. And here's the thing. The last one we had was 5 years ago, I believe. I think it was 5 years. And that was Shane Black's The Predator, which came to a lot of mixed reactions from fans. So what I'm going to suggest here is an idea that I like and I've wanted for some time. And that is, let's go ahead and do a direct sequel to the first Predator. And we're going to bring back Arnold as Dutch. He's going to come back on almost as a consultant. Kind of think like Sigourney Weaver as Ripley going in Aliens, and how they bring her into that film and how she goes along with the Marines. The difference here is that Arnold's a badass. And here's the thing. I don't want him to be more badass and over the top than he was last time, but I don't also want him to be sidelined and have him weak and just not up to the task. I want that perfect balance that we had in the first movie. Find that sweet spot, and that's exactly how I want his character to be. So he's joining these SEALs. I think that'd be a cool group to bring in. And this time they know what the Predator is, and they've tracked it, and it's going into the jungle. So they're not there on a side mission. They are there specifically for this thing. And since everyone's so freaked out by it, they're not going to set up camp nearby. It's going to be just like the first movie. They're going to drop them off and get the hell out. And then in a day or 2, we're going to come pick you up. Except this time they're a little bit more prepared. Perhaps there's something that they give the SEALs that they can put over themselves to skew the heat-seeking vision that the Predator has. And eventually, the Predator figures this out and starts going for their equipment and their bags and begins removing that from them, so now it can track them better. And then we get back to that element that the first movie had, where it's part slasher, where he's going in with his blades and taking these guys out, and the shoulder cannon too. And then we have, eventually, the final act of the movie is that bit of survival horror, a game of cat and mouse. And I want another rematch. Let's have Dutch face off against the Predator one more time. And you'll have a new group, a new cast around him. So if you do want to do more spin-offs and future movies, you can do that. And let's just have it go full bore. And let's have it also have that element of action movie as well. So this is going to be another great film, and it'll probably be the best since the first. Like, let that be the goal and the thing that the filmmakers are trying to reach. And I think you do it right, and you have one of the best sequels in the franchise. Everyone's back on board, And who knows, maybe Arnold will want to do it again if this is a big enough hit, which it would be, because this is what fans have wanted. They want Arnold to return. He was supposed to return twice. I think once to AVP, but something with him being governor messed that up. And then again with Shane Black's movie, and I don't know what happened there. But let's get him in as a main character here. Not a supporting character, a main character. All right, I'm going to get up and walk around a little bit here. So, how do you all feel about these 5 movies that I have here that I think need a sequel? Are you on board with them? Do you like some of my ideas? Let me know down in the comments. And most of you already know the drill, but for those who don't, make sure to smash that notification bell. Like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay inside the mind of a movie maniac.